Who sent you?
I see a suit of armor around the world.
Ultron.
In the flesh. Or no, not yet. Not this Christmas. But I'm ready. I'm on mission.
What mission?
Peace in our time.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello.
I still smile and laugh to myself in very quiet silence as you do that each and every time. 39 episodes deep.
It's like hosting a newscast. I got to put on my newscaster voice.
Yeah, it's exactly the podcast voice, as we like to call it.
But hey, Dai.
Hi,
hello.
Jeff. Hello. You beat me to it.
We're back.
Yay. And Mr. Man is sporting his Kith Amazing Spider-Man bucket hat.
So I'm wearing just caps, like regular baseball caps.
Buckets are in.
And I'm just like, oh, I'll wear the bucket hat today.
I like it. Does it actually reverse, or is it
it's not reverse, but on the inside is the...
That's cool.
It's
it's Todd McFarlane artwork too.
There you go.
Wow. 90s Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Super cool.
Super cool. I love it. Yeah, I mean, what should we do? Should we just jump into all the things Marvel? Right up
you should,
front,
because there's a lot of big
stuff.
It's not that much, but it's huge.
For sure, huge.
News, yeah.
Well, speaking of huge, I wanted to open with this notation about, I don't know if you've ever heard about Disney Movie Insiders. Have you heard of that?
Maybe in passing.
Maybe
gotten an email. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that of course, it's all encompassing, all things Disney.
Yeah.
But it's one of these services that they provide. It's kind of under the radar. Mm-hmm. But if every time you buy or see a movie that is under the Disney franchise, so including Star Wars and including Marvel Studios, you can log all your purchases and whatnot for points. It's a point system, basically. Okay. And so I wanted to show this thing that I got in the mail today. This is not a sponsored ad or anything. I just really do love the app, and everything is technically free. It's just you're cashing in on buying their products.
Got it.
And so I received this amazing poster in the mail today, and I had to show you, Jeff, because it's just so cool.
Oh. I have no idea what it is. I just see a box.
It's a giant box.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a giant...
Whoa!
Isn't that
Holy
cool?
crap.
It's a giant bus shelter poster of I Am Groot from the I Am Groot series on Disney+.
That is the most high quality thing.
Double-sided.
Oh.
Double-sided. So it's the reverse on the back, and you put it through a light screen or the bus shelter. And it's supposed to promote their... their stream. So I got that for free.
Where do you even put that?
I don't know where to put it. That's the problem. It's gigantic. It's as big as this TV, honestly.
It's humongous.
It's humongous, but it's adorable and incredible quality. I was going to say exquisite quality, but incredible quality.
Looks super, that deserves a frame.
Free. For free. Start to finish. I was just like, I have 2,000 points.
Might as well.
And I kept scrolling the stuff, and sometimes they have bags or t-shirts or whatever, digital things. And then I saw that and I was like, 300 points, huh?
300?
Yeah,
wow.
It's pretty slim.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is. You can get a
looks
DVD
like a 1,000 point.
Yeah, I don't even think at most it was 650. But that was it.
That's
and I still
crazy.
have 1,500 left over.
Nice.
So now I have this gigantic I Am Groot poster. So if you haven't yet, download it. Disney Movie Insiders, very cool stuff. So yeah, let's get into nitty gritty. First and foremost, this is going to be a one-sided converation. But the Wakanda Forever final trailer just dropped. And of course, everybody asked me like, "Did you watch it yet, Dai?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah, but as soon as I woke up, because I was on a work trip this last 2 days.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up and checking Twitter as one does.
Yes.
And then I saw, boom, a new Wakanda Forever trailer. And I was like, yep. I mean, I watched it a little hungover, but I was just like, on my phone, I was just like, oh.
I got to admit, I didn't expect another. It didn't even dawn on me that there was going to be another trailer after the Comic-Con trailer that dropped. But maybe that's the stuff that they showed at D23, I guess.
Maybe. Yeah. Possibly. There was a lot of things in there.
Dang.
things were packed in.
Yes.
I will say that.
Yeah. So for the people who don't quite understand, I did not watch it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not going to watch it.
Because I was about to just like text Dai and be like, Dai, did you see that? And I was just like, but I always remember how like before I want to talk things about Dai, I'm like, are you gonna watch it? And then she's most likely gonna be like, yeah, I'm not watching it. And I was like, okay.
I want to be as pure as the guy that saw that Spider-Man No Way Home trailer for the first time. Like, I want to be that pure. Sure. Right? I'm gonna go in blind.
It's like impossible for me to like not like see it. So I was just like, again, it's me hyped too. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it looks super good. Yeah. Namor looks really good. The new BP suit looks amazing.
Sick. It looks sick from the small glance that I've seen of it. And it was at D23 as well. Like they unveiled it at D23 and I saw the unveiling video and I was like, no, don't look. Yeah. And so, but I've seen parts of it. And so I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Also,
it looks incredible. Just
like the scale of this movie too.
Yeah.
Looks massive.
Yeah.
You know, like Wakanda versus like Namor's people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm botching it. I forget. And then, so it takes place like in Wakanda underwater and then also goes like on land too, like that's not Wakanda,
right? So
it's like, and the movie's 2 hours and 41 minutes.
It's so wild.
So who knows what they're gonna pack in.
And that's kind of what I love about these, you know, not to trail off into Black Panther land, but that's kind of what I love about Ryan Coogler's films so far is that they really do, you know, and we've said this before, in that they seem to focus so much on New York, superhero movies in general, or you know, comic book films, if you will.
Yeah.
They seem to focus on New York like it's nobody's business. Sometimes they'll go to LA, sometimes they go to San Francisco, but it's always New York. And so with Ryan Coogler and you know, Wakanda, they not only transport you to a different continent, but they're also bringing you into all these different, you know, quote unquote worlds and different places. And now they're taking us underwater and doing something that we haven't quite seen in the Marvel universe yet.
Yes.
And so that's what really excites me, because did you watch Aquaman?
Aquaman, I didn't. That was one I didn't. I think it just trailed off for me. In light of recent events, I'm probably just like, it's not on my watch list.
Sure. Yeah, like, I mean, I could definitely see some of the challenges, and some of these challenges are reflected in also one of the scenes that James Gunn did for Guardians of the Galaxy Part 1, where Gamora and Star-Lord were in space, and so they filmed that underwater, and so things like that. So there are all these elements that I'm like, how did they do it? Especially with having a character like Namor be such a big part of the film.
Yeah, and the people too are, you know, they're all live underwater.
I'm sure,
yeah.
I can't wait to see it in like full.
I'm excited. I'm super excited.
Super duper. Yeah, I'm super duper ready. So yeah, I got tickets for the fan event on the Thursday, and then opening night, because I need to see it in IMAX. Because that's the one thing. If it was El Capitan fan event with IMAX, checked all my boxes. I'm good.
Yeah, but El Capitan doesn't do that.
Yeah, they need to do a little upgrade over there. And yeah, tickets are on sale. So if you haven't gotten them yet, go get you some Black Panther tickets. She-Hulk is coming to an end in 2 weeks, in 2 episodes worth. Yeah. So the second to last episode will have aired by the time this episode drops, but we're finally getting Daredevil in this episode. I can't wait to. I know.
Are we?
They're like super fake out of
all the Daredevil
century.
fans are just like clenching their fists.
I know. I knew it. Like the minute that it was the retreat episode, the wedding episode, I was like, oh, she just played everybody.
They get it. She gets it.
And then they did the retreat episode after that. I was like, oh,
this is hilarious. I love this. I love it a lot.
So great. I love this. So good. But I'm in the back of my head, I'm like, I can't believe Daredevil's not here yet. So I know what it feels like, but I'm like, dude, it's still so good that it's like, whatever. But by the drop of this episode, Werewolf by Night will be streaming already.
Yes.
And I'm so sad that I don't get to go to that streaming at Hollywood.
At Hollywood Cemetery.
Yeah, the Forever Cemetery.
I have tickets too, but
I have
I'm
tickets,
like, but like my body's like so just exhausted
really?
right
You're not
now.
gonna
So
go?
we'll see. It'll probably be a game time decision for me.
I mean, WandaVision Halloween episode.
I know, that's even like, oh,
you might
God.
get something cool.
It's a Delta feature.
But then you got to find parking, and then you got to pay for parking.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Well, we'll see. Maybe we can give some tickets away online.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, Deadpool 3 trailer. Well, not trailer. Announcement. Wolverine is finally coming into the MCU, and it's Hugh Jackman.
That felt like a trick. Like as I was watching.
Oh my gosh,
I was like,
100%.
is this like a...
I was like, is this real?
I was like, there's no way this is real.
Well, my thought process, and this is the funny thing, because you texted it to me while I was at work, and that's why I didn't see it immediately,
Yes.
right? So I saw you text to me, and I was like, and then when you just shoot me a die, I'm like, oh no, what happened? And so I just saw Ryan Reynolds' face in the preview, and I was like, and then I like went onto my computer and I typed it in and I said it out loud. I was like, what is Ryan Reynolds up to now? And I pulled it up and I was like, oh, I was like super excited. I was like, oh yeah, Deadpool. I forgot Deadpool wasn't even part of D23.
Yeah.
And then the big reveal at the very tail end of that, I was like, holy friggin' snick.
With a date too. With the date.
With the logo. Labor Day weekend.
The Marvel
or something,
Studios
right?
logo for the first time over the Deadpool logo.
Incredible. With Logan Incorporated, Wolverine Incorporated, into like, oh my God.
We did it.
We did it, guys.
We did it, Joe.
I mean, that's
insane.
Phenomenal. Like, he's obviously not the first mutant, let alone first X-Man to be introduced into the MCU, but what a way to do it. Like, they just brought back the big man.
I know.
Yeah, and I love that they were like, they did that follow-up video of like, by the way, Logan's still happy.
Yeah. Like, don't worry, he's dead. It's fine.
One. Yeah, exactly.
It's totally different. Love it.
And also it takes place in a different time frame. Like that's supposed to be like 2083 or something, whatever it was. But yeah, it's fine. It's cool.
Yeah,
we get Hugh Jackman back for another movie.
I'm so excited. To see even a smidge of whatever teasers they get.
Seriously. I mean, it's super duper exciting, and it looks like he's gonna be, well, at least Deadpool will be back, or actually featured in his black and gray, which is an X-Force outfit. And that run, and I was talking to Robbie about this the other week actually, that run of X-Force is honestly one of my favorites. It's probably, I want to say 2010s, and it consisted of, I'm gonna botch everybody who was on that team. I think it's Wolverine, Deadpool, Psylocke, Warpath, or Thunderbird. I always forget. Thunderbird's dead. I think it's Warpath. He's one of the bigger Native American guys.
Yeah.
He's freaking incredible. And I want to say, I forgot his name. His face is in my brain. But it's like a great team. Great writing, a little darker, but that black and gray Wolverine suit, they almost match. Is like so sick, and I kind of hope that they put him in that.
Yeah,
amazing.
Can't wait to see what story
super stoked. Yeah,
they do.
In it to win it, baby. So yeah, in about 2 years, we're gonna be blessed not only with the Thunderbolts, but then right after that, Deadpool 3. So that's gonna be fun. So. That said, shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. You know, we're not experts. We don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out. So yeah, let's jump into today's featured character. We haven't gone onto the dark side in quite a bit here. So this one's a kind of a refreshing take away from the general superheroes we've been covering lately. But today's character study is on the one and only Man of Iron, Ultron.
You thought she said Man of Iron. You thought.
And yeah, so
Ultron, yes.
And this is an interesting one because he's only been in the MCU like a stone in the pond. Like he didn't really make this gigantic effort on the MCU as a whole and in effect, but like he did leave a mark of sorts, and so in one film. Yes. And of course, we'll get into that shortly. But first and foremost, created by Roy Thomas and John Buscema, Ultron's first appearance. So this is one of those circumstances where the character made a quote unquote first appearance, but was not named until an issue later, I believe. Yeah, an issue later.
Okay.
It's kind of like Yelena. Yelena was a little bit of the same.
Oh, like her face appeared, but yeah.
She had appeared. She was like on the Black Widow.
Yes.
But she did not appear as Yelena Belova.
Yeah.
Until the next issue. And so Ultron kind of has a similar circumstance in that he appears in this cloaked garb, mysterious man type of ordeal, and you never see his quote unquote face until the next issue. And so technically he first appeared in the Avengers number 54. Do you want to give a go at the year?
Oh,
54.
Avengers number 54.
Yeah.
So I feel like he was like a newer character. I'm gonna go. Oh wow, fudge. 1983.
A little off. A little too modern.
Okay.
July 1968.
Dang, I was gonna say. I was
Really?
like, yeah. I was like, is that?
They started a bit early in the 60s with a non-named cameo, and then officially in the Avengers number 55, August 1968, by name. And he didn't originally go by Ultron or only Ultron. He went by Ultron 5.
Okay.
So, but judging by the variety of these comics, number 55 seems to be the most widely accepted one for his first appearance. And then when it comes to grading and purchasing and the value of this comic, on Shortbox, CGC 9.4 goes for $1,700.
Okay.
There's like chunk change. It's like, all right, for an older book and for a character of his tier, I'm kind of surprised that it's that quote
high?
unquote low.
Low. Okay.
But on the flip side, and I would love somebody to, I don't know, maybe the person on Shortbox just doesn't care that much.
Maybe.
Yeah, because on eBay you can get a CGC 9.8 of this book. So 0.4 higher for $7,035.
Jeez.
So that's a 0.4 difference for nearly six grand
yeah.
more. I don't know why that is, but there is also a 9.6 signed by Stan Lee for $7,360.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say it's a $7,000 book. I'm not sure why the short box version is going for so low, but hey, if you want to get you some Ultron, you could do it for under $2,000. Whereas the lowest editions of this book on short box CGC 5.5. Still pretty good. You can get it for $155.
Okay.
And then on eBay, a CGC 4.5, $60.
Wow.
So owning the very first edition of this character's appearance is like completely realistic. You can get a loosey-goosey for about $30.
Yeah, if you don't care about it.
If you don't care about it and you just want it, $30. That's cheaper than some books are these days.
Yeah.
So it goes without saying, first exposure to the character.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be.
The film.
You got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really, I can't say that I've thought like, oh, like big metal man.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, probably that, and then James Spader did an amazing job.
He is fantastic.
So it's like,
yeah. His voice is
really
crazy.
cemented, like Ultron's like gravitas, yeah, grandiose, like kind of,
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
But yeah, Age of Ultron in 2015.
Look at you. He's already ready. For me, yeah, quite similarly, I mean, I beyond having this card, I do have a card from 1992, which is shocking to me. And I have an Age of Ultron trading card as well. But yeah, I think my first real introduction to this character was just before the film came out. Because like many of these films, or at least these characters that they introduced in the MCU, they always preluded with a comic book story, right? They always had like Guardians of the Galaxy, they revamped them. They released it 2 years before, and with that team that they eventually brought into the movie. And then they did the same thing with Ultron, and they created an arc of comic books called Age of Ultron in 2013.
Got it.
And I remember buying that. It was off the shelf. And, it had this like kind of, I think there was two versions. It was like a flat version. Then they had like a special edition version that was on a deluxe print and it had a little sheen to it. And I was like, ooh, that's cool. So I bought it. It's number one.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. And who would know that it would 2 years time turn into a major film in phase 2 of the MCU. So speaking of the card, yeah, it's a 1992 Marvel Masterpieces card. I'm gonna go ahead, and it's Joe Jusko yet again. Of course, he painted the entire set.
He's doing everything.
Yeah, and it's funny because this card actually designates the first appearance as number 55, where he's named. So there's a difference right there. But here is the back of the card, and it says Ultron. A robotics experiment by Dr. Henry Pym resulted in the creation of Ultron, a self-aware automation with a consuming hatred for its creator. In its unwavering quest to destroy Pym and his comrades, the superhero team known as the Avengers, Ultron has evolved into ever more sophisticated and deadly forms, each more powerful than the last. Hard to stop, impossible to kill, Ultron continues to be one of the Avengers' most dangerous and relentless enemies. Anything stand out there for you?
Oh, shoot.
Well, the first...
I mean, created by,
Henry Pym, yeah.
Yeah, like...
Yeah.
That's a different...
The biggest gigantic difference of all. And I think, for the quote-unquote hardcore fans that are familiar with that origin story, when the film was introduced or when they even hinted at what was going to happen and how Ultron's creation was going to be in the movies, everybody was kind of startled by that because, at that point, and I had to backtrack after I watched it today to refresh my memory, but I had to backtrack where does that fall in the MCU line, right? Mm-hmm. Had Hank Pym been introduced into the MCU, and he had, by way of Ant-Man, which I think was 2 movies before Ultron or right before Ultron, right?
Was it? Ant-Man came out in 2014, right?
Yeah.
So it was either
right
a movie
before.
or 2 movies behind.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I mean, I'm sure that there are a number of reasons why they didn't go that route. Yeah. Because, once again, they didn't know how far this was going to come.
Yeah.
And it was only the second Avengers installment. So, I mean,
I can see. Because at the time I didn't know the comics, so I was like, so I can see why at the time when the movie came out,
sure, yeah,
people were like, why did Tony create Ultron when obviously in the comics Hank did? And you're like, oh, okay, I see where people would be like, why would you do this? Right. But I mean, in the context of what the MCU was at the time, Tony was that guy. Yeah. Like, if anything, there's him trying to create this. Because he doesn't want to work anymore. Yeah, he's like a suit of armor around the world. Boom. Right. Like it makes sense for him. Yeah. Like he might as well.
Yeah. And of course, we'll talk about that shortly. Oh, I also wanted to mention, and I think I showed you this already, but it's one of these threat level Nova Corps data file cards from the new Guardians of the Galaxy ride. Oh. And so Ultron is actually one of them. And it's like this clear plexiglass. It looks like a futuristic chip wannabe prop thing. And it's got Ultron in it. But so just those 3 cards. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about how all this transpired. But first and foremost, let's see. Inspired by a synthetic being known as Dragon Man, Pym began experimenting on his stuff and trying to create artificial intelligence. So as we go along with all these topics and all these points of discussion, it's going to become very clear that like there are lots of similarities as to why the whys that inevitably created Ultron. Yeah. You'll see some parallels, but they're all like, instead of Pym, it's Stark. And so this is kind of one of them. So in the vein of like when Tony in the film was like trying to do what you just said, like he was trying to kind of
put a suit of armor around the world.
Yeah, like almost quite literally, in that he was trying to find a resolve for peacekeeping. Pym thought, well, if I create this artificial intelligence, this can help the world.
Yeah,
trying to do better. Of
course.
And so he built this robot that was quite literally like a bizarre torso. It's like a metal torso.
Okay.
So it has a tiny head and it had like a V-shaped body, like the typical robot like from the 50s look. Yeah. And it was on tank treads. So it had little like...
Of course it was.
And he had tiny arms, right? It was very strange. And so Marvel.com itself states, Pym endowed it with the consciousness using a copy of his own brain patterns as the basis for the robot's programming. However, the robot inherited not only Pym's great intellect, but his inherent mental instability, only without a human conscience. So, kind reminder that Hank Pym in the comics was very, very troubled.
Yes.
He was an alcoholic. He was an abusive spouse. He was just not a great guy, aside being a big brain of the Avengers team. And so when and you have to remember, this is on the heels of Vision being created from Wonder Man's brain.
That's right.
Yeah, yes. Brainwaves, right? So they're into this brainwave thing. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. The standards were like, yeah, use the brainwaves again.
Brainwaves.
Do it again.
Yes.
And so they're doing this brainwave thing. And so Pym pulls it over, puts it in this robot, and he's like, great, my intellect will save the world. And then the frickin' AI adopts his like abusive tendencies.
Good
all
Lord.
His flaws but the worst part being it didn't have a conscience. And so in Age of Ultron, of course, directed by Joss Whedon, Ultron, they even say it in the film, like they have all these notes of like, well, that sounds familiar when Ultron talks. And they're talking about he sounds like Tony, right?
Yeah.
He's saying things like Tony.
Yeah.
And he's thinking like Tony. And so I was like, oh, that's right. I didn't quite, because I reread the books first and then going back, because I haven't seen Age of Ultron maybe since the Captain America marathon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the Civil War marathon, like at least 5 years ago. So yeah, I did. Picking up on all these things that they're saying, I was like, oh wow, it is actually quite similar to the books. And so, I previously mentioned, he first appears in the comics in the form of Ultron 5, the Living Automaton. Automaton. Is that a word? Automaton.
I don't know if
maybe I typoed it. I don't know. Automaton. Originating from another group of characters created by Thomas named Ultroids, who appeared 2 years prior.
Okay.
And so the Ultroids kind of resemble that little fleet of robots that was in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Got it.
That's what they look like.
Oh, okay.
So it's like they're pivoting from that model.
Got it.
So as Ultron 5, Ultron looks like the way that we know him as now. And so in this storyline, he was tangled up in a battle between the new masters of evil, comprised of, this is the funniest part, Crimson Cowl, who is the masked person, right? The persona that he took on, Whirlwind, the Melter, Radioactive Man, not the Simpsons. That was an actual character in Marvel's.
That's funny.
It's so funny. Radioactive Man, as well as Claw.
Oh.
Yes, that one.
Wow.
Yeah. And believe it or not, the Black Knight.
Whoa.
The Black Knight. So that is our dear friend from the Eternals.
Yeah.
But he's kind of established in this character. This is actually the becomings of him being introduced under the realm of this character as Dane Whitman, as a quote unquote supervillain.
Got it. Wow.
So there are all these intermingling storylines, of course, but it's the Avengers lineup that this first comes into focus. And so the Avengers at this time were comprised of the Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. You got to remember, there's no Hope Van Dyne in the comic books. Hope Van Dyne is an amalgamation
Yes.
of two different characters, and it's Janet sort of and Nadia, who we've talked about a little bit in the Winter Soldier episode. But yeah, the Avengers at this time are Wasp, Hawkeye, Black Panther, and Goliath, who is Giant Man, essentially.
Yes.
Hank Pym.
Yes.
And support from Jarvis in human form, the actual Jarvis.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so I tried to summarize it to the best of my ability in one little paragraph. So bear with me. So Jarvis, it's so dramatic. I love it. Jarvis gets tangled up in this mess because he's a trusted among the heroes, a trusted human, right? So they're like, this is our secret cave. This is our secret tunnel. These
Okay.
are our secret things to keep us safe from all the bad guys.
Okay.
And so he knows all of this knowledge. And so with that knowledge of the protective security traps and such, he decidedly attempts to sell the information to the MOE, the Masters of Evil, right?
Okay.
He tries to sell the information to them for a large sum of money. And it's all because his mother had a mountain of medical bills because she had just gotten in a terrible, terrible accident.
Okay.
And so he was like, well, if I sell the information and if I get the money, I can just help my mother out. And it's like, at this point, I was like, I was face palming and I was like, why didn't you just ask Tony Stark? So he sold all their secrets for money, only to get betrayed by the Masters of Evil in the end. And of course, Ultron. And so all this stuff goes down, all of these things are happening, and Ultron himself ends up fighting not only the Avengers, but the Fantastic Four, the Inhumans, so on and so forth, and inevitably returns as an upgraded model each and every time.
Whoa.
So he's still like, he's not really a modern threat. He's had some solo titles and he's been interwoven into other series ever since these old days.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how he came about. He was kind of like the technology that just kept upgrading and coming back and coming back. And like, I'm back, Avengers.
That's
and
insane. Yeah.
Solely based on the fact that he hates humanity.
Yeah, well.
And it's a self-manifestation of his AI.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate, like
Right.
to the movie.
Yeah. Which, speaking of the movie, of course, voice and motion capture by James Spader, as well as motion capture by Neil Fingleton. Yeah. And so it's the second to last film of Phase 2. And the character itself was last seen in What If Season 1,
Yeah.
where he was voiced by Ross Marquand, one of the most talented people in the Force.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, unless you count Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness with the Ultron droids. So I thought it was really interesting that if you do go back and watch this film, because let's be honest, of all the Avengers films, it's the least heralded,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of unfortunate, but I do remember when I did see it during that Captain America marathon, I was like, it's not as bad as
It's not as bad.
recall it being.
I never thought it was too.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad at all.
It's hard following up something that was so good. And
Sure,
and
yeah,
people
with
always,
Avengers
they always, to this day, like they're holding Marvel, MCU to this standard of
Yeah.
like, lightning doesn't strike twice.
Right.
So like the first Avengers, it was just like, oh shoot,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
And then
so good.
now you're following up the Age of Ultron. And then, they introduced obviously Wanda and Pietro and Vision.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, right? It's like a big film
It's humongous.
for
Like at the time, for the times in 2015, like having that many pretty famous stars in one movie.
In one film. Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane.
And also big moments because they're introducing the quote unquote enhanced for the very, very first official time.
Yeah.
And they happen to be Pietro and Wanda Maximoff of all characters. And then they're really bringing Rhodey into the fray. And I believe that's the first appearance of War Machine in its working format. I think it was, right?
It might be.
I think so.
Boom, you looking for this?
Yes. What does he say? I don't know, kills it. Why do I talk to you guys? He's so funny. And then even Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson with his wings for the first time, I think.
What is no?
No?
No.
Second.
No. It
Because
was
Ant-Man. Because he had it in Ant-Man. Oh no, what am I saying? Because okay,
the begin. No,
Winter Soldier.
Sam Wilson just pulled up
Yeah.
and was just in the first
Winter
scene
Soldier,
at the party.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
But he appears at the very end with the newfound Avengers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it was an upgraded suit, but it was definitely like one of those moments where I was like, oh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he did have it.
Yes.
Winter Soldier
yes.
and Ant-Man. But I feel like he looked, maybe the color, I don't know. I feel like the coloration looked different, but that could just be me.
Maybe.
Whatever.
I mean.
But yeah, and who else? And like, God, I'll tell you though, they were really trying to force that Nat and Bruce thing on replay. I was like,
they had to.
They really, really leaned
I feel like
into
they
that.
felt like they had to, and it wasn't necessary in my opinion. But it's just like,
Yeah.
sure, why not?
Right.
And the whole. Yeah, now I think about it and like recapping this movie in my head, there's a lot of storyline in there.
There's a
and
lot.
Like, some
There's
of it
a
was
lot
actually
going
pretty
on.
necessary. Like the whole Clint and Secret Family.
Mm-hmm. Secret Family. Clint had a pretty big part in this film.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Because people always say like, oh, he just has, bow and arrows. Right. But like now he's this integral part.
Which is funny because he even says, that's the classic scene that he actually even says it in. He's like, none of this makes sense.
I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense. So that was nice. And then, but then it's also showing like how going back to Ultron, like just how much like he like disintegrated like that part of the team. Yeah. It was like, you're like, oh, this guy means business.
He took them down really hard. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll discuss this multiple times throughout this episode, but I think one of the most crucial scenes, if you're trying to really understand this character in any light, in comic book or movie form, one of the most crucial scenes is when those two techno like spheres, when he's communicating with Jarvis, right? And you see them
that was
Ultron's
such a cool
the blue,
scene,
the blue and the light orange, and how like Jarvis is like slowly trying to like acclimate him to being a living organism,
like an
in
AI,
some way.
like a proper AI.
Yeah, like he's slowly blossoming into consciousness, and he's like, where am I? Where's my body? And all these weird questions. And then you see him like downloading information at the mere word of saying peace. He downloads like all these like peaceful images. Avengers, same thing. And like you almost see flickers of every film before, up to that point, which is really crazy. And it's like, and then he just almost immediately turns on Jarvis immediately and like assimilates to Jarvis, and then it's over, which they then they call it later in the movie, he killed that guy. Like when Cap hears
you killed somebody,
you killed somebody. I know. I was like, whoa.
Wasn't my first choice.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way of understanding him, because you get the idea of like he is this new, like he's a new murder baby. He like blossoms into, and he has no conscience whatsoever. Yeah, and he just immediately like gravitates to like, well, humans need to be destroyed. Yeah, because they're destroying the planet.
Is extinction of humans.
Exactly, which is like, whoa.
Okay.
Whoa, but like I previously mentioned, the film is loosely based on a comic book title arc, if you will, of the same name, Age of Ultron. And that's not unlike Captain America Civil War. Because I know people were like, oh, Civil War. Oh, cool. That's going to be Civil War. But then it wasn't like Civil War, if you will. So Age of Ultron is kind of like that. They named it after the comic book title, but it didn't exactly follow the exact specifications of that book. And, of course, the film itself only has fragments and elements of that source material. But speaking of the source material, it was written by Brian Michael Bendis, co-creator of Miles Morales, as we know him, and many other amazing characters, featuring art by Brian Hitch, Paul Neary, Brandon Peterson, Carlos Pacheco, Roger Bonet, and colors by Paul Mount and Jose Villarrubia. It's a 10-issue series, and it was released in 2013. I think I got like maybe the first 4. And then I tapered off. Like 2013, like the 2010s were like when I was kind of in and out. Like I was mostly like Spider-Man. I was just like, everything's Spider-Man.
Yeah, I get it.
yeah. The bucket hat says everything.
Oh yeah.
But believe it or not, the series Age of Ultron itself takes place on two different Earths. So it's kind of divided, and they don't really get into the nitty gritty of differentiating the two Earths until the second issue or so. But it takes essentially place in a future, in a dystopian future, Earth 61112, where Ultron annihilated all of humanity successfully.
Of course.
And then the past, or the present, if you will, Earth 26111, where Sorceress Morgan Le Fay reigned over half the planet. And so we've talked about Morgan Le Fay very, very minimally. She's portrayed by Elizabeth Hurley in the MCU. She was in the Runaways show on Hulu from a few years back. She's more or less, she's a sorceress. She's all that good witchcraft stuff. But yeah, she reigned the planet. I believe her consort was Doctor Doom in this alternate universe. Yeah, and so this title was much darker than the usual, well, at the time, like what would be depicted as like a colorful comic book arc. The first 14 pages, I made note of this because I thought it was so funny to me. The first 14 pages of issue 1 are literally just Hawkeye killing people.
Jeez.
And it's dystopian future. And sure, they're showing Hawkeye going through the trenches and the rubble, and he's just like, he's just hitting people in the temple, in the chest, through the mouth. Like, it's just nuts. It's nuts. And that is reminiscent of the scene in Sokovia with him and Quicksilver and Wanda. And he's just like going to town with all his arrows, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? How does he have so many arrows? But it's very similar. So they're taking these little elements and putting them into the film. And so in Age of Ultron, the title, Ultron reawakens from, his dormant state, and he hates humanity more than ever, if possible. And then he seeks to, quote unquote, purify Earth of the human condition, which is like, sheesh, okay.
Kind of dark.
It's very dark. And so, like I mentioned, it takes place in two different time sets on top of being a multiverse thing. So there's a lot of time jumping. And what it boils down to is that Wolverine tries to go back to the past. So the X-Men are part of this too.
Jesus.
Just FYI.
Good
so
God.
so Wolverine tries to go to the past to kill Pym.
Okay.
This might sound familiar because this was suggested for Infinity War and Endgame. He goes back to the past to try and kill Pym before he creates Ultron.
Okay.
So this is like the baby theory.
Yeah.
What if we just kill Thanos before?
He's a baby.
He's a baby. Oh, God, so good. I love Paul Rudd and Don Cheadle. So in the end, Pym creates an algorithm that is later uploaded to Ultron's system thanks to Iron Man. And then Ultron is defeated before the apocalyptic alternate world can come to be. But when they actually show the future, it obviously didn't go without consequence because it seemingly had irreparable damage. So with all the time travel, it rips the time, like Doctor Strange has said this like many times in No Way Home.
Yeah.
That just ruins the timeline.
Yeah.
And things started to suffer. So while they were ultimately able to save the world, quote unquote, it still had
its
remnants.
effects.
It still had its effects, unfortunately. And so that event was definitely gigantic. It included everyone from the Avengers, the Inhumans, the X-Men, etc., 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 etc. And I actually have some screenshots for you because I want you to see how freaking crazy this is. So this is like a wall of people involved, and like one of the pictures is Moon Knight.
I know. Holy
it's
crap.
Like all these characters are involved in this storyline. Wiccan, Lockjaw, Wanda.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, all these people.
Iron Fist. Wow.
Braddock, which is Captain Britain. And then, so this was like the lineup per issue. And you'll see like very familiar names. And Black Widow is kind of suffering a bit. She's got one eye.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
Rambo,
so,
Taskmaster, Red Hulk. That's crazy.
yeah. And they're all in these issues. And it was 10 issues long, and it happened.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Red Hulk. I mean, yeah. So then they split them up. You can see who's in the past and the future. Oh, so crazy. So that's the Age of Ultron storyline in the books. It's pretty, again, it's pretty dark. If you want to read it. But it's a pretty good, like he's they adapted him so well into the MCU. It's
I mean, now,
like,
now
you can't
we talked about it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he kind of does take from the only difference is
yeah.
created by
It's
Stark.
just the setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And so we're just gonna roll right into powers. Superhuman strength, speed, and durability, flight, concussion blasters, tractor beams, radiation emitters,
What
encephalo
character
beam.
doesn't have that? I feel like so many characters have that.
Which one? Concussion blasters?
Or just super strength, super speed.
Yeah.
It's
They
just
all
like,
they all have
yeah.
it in some way. Encephalo beam, which is basically he can hypnotize and such. Energy absorption, program transmitter, memory capacity, motility support, power supply, sensor apparatus, technoforming, which is essentially like almost like nanotech.
Okay.
He can rebuild himself a bit. Entering planes of existence. So this is something exactly. Jeff's making a face at me. So entering planes of existence is probably one of the biggest stark contrasts with this character from the cinematic version.
Yeah.
In that this is something he directly derived from Hank Pym. So
Got it.
AKA Ultron can go subatomic in the comics. And he can
Jeez.
transport himself into different parallel universes or multiverses, planes, what have you. And so imagine Ultron being like, well, this didn't work. And then he just goes
Gotta go.
subatomic and then he goes somewhere else.
Gotta go.
And he got to go. He can do that. He can do that
Gosh.
in the comics.
Good gosh. Good riddance.
With that said, are you ready for a first pop quiz?
No.
This one's good. Okay, this one's good because, and I wrote very simply, you're a tech guy, Jeff. How large is Ultron's memory capacity?
God. Jesus, man.
So this
Is there an actual number?
There is.
There is an actual number?
There's an actual number.
You know what's so freaking hilarious? I just watched this video from Corridor Digital, their VFX company.
Yeah.
And this video was specifically discussing like how much is, like a gigabyte, a terabyte, like
Yeah.
like in physical form, like
interesting.
back in the day.
Yeah.
Not to go super side tangent, but back in the day, 128 kilobytes
Yeah.
was like oh my god, it's
Yeah.
so much memory.
Yeah.
But now it's like
It's barely a
like
picture.
it's like you can only get 125 kilobytes in a micro SD card. Now in a micro SD card you can get 128 gigabytes.
Exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of just like what the hell? So
Yeah.
they would like show like the actual physics. So it's like, and if
Yep.
you guys don't know, quick math, like 1 gig or 1 megabyte or 1,000 megabytes is 1 gigabyte, 1,000 gigabytes is 1 terabyte,
Yeah.
so forth, so forth, so forth.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I have multiple choice if you want
Okay.
them. If you want them.
yes, give me one, but I do have a guess just off the rip.
So multiple choice for Ultron's memory capacity: 5.7 terabytes, 45 terabytes, 259 terabytes, or 3.2 terabytes.
That's it? They're only going terabytes? They're not even gonna,
Exactly.
they're not going to hit petabytes? Like, come on.
It's a terabyte. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is why I brought this question up, because I knew that you would actually like really
Jesus,
like
man.
know the folds of this.
Wish my PS5 can have that kind of memory.
Can you imagine? Ultron's like, hold on, I'm running out of space.
Hold on, I'm downloading an update and it's gonna copy.
Hold on, I have to plug this in with USB-C right here, right in my armpit. I got to add some
Oh.
terabytes. Yeah.
Repeat it. So the first one,
5.7 terabytes, 45 terabytes, 259 terabytes, or 3.2 terabytes.
why would this number is so small?
I agree. So I was
After watching Age of Ultron, you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, this guy
There's,
can
like,
go
no
through everything.
freaking way,
Like, I'm
right?
like,
Yeah.
oh, it's at least 1,000 petabytes, right? Like,
at least, right? No.
none of the small numbers.
is
That's just
gonna-
my. I don't want to go to any of those small numbers.
Okay. So 45
So-
or 259.
God, that 259 is throwing me off, but I feel like that's such an out of pocket number. Can I ask what year this number was established?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
It might say somewhere.
Or what issue
I
it was?
think in the 60s or 70s.
Oh, so it was like out of this world.
Yeah,
then.
that's why I think it's
Yeah.
so low. To be honest,
Yeah.
that's why I think
because
it's
they didn't probably.
of the
This is
terabyte
impossible.
world. Yeah, right.
I'm going to go the B. Just
259.
no.
Oh, 45.
45.
So 45 terabytes. Would you believe that canonically Ultron's memory capacity is a measly 3.2 terabytes.
Bro, I have a 4 terabyte hard drive at home for work.
Exactly. Mine is 2. Mine is a 2 terabyte.
Like,
and I'm
what?
like, this isn't enough space.
And it's already almost filled.
Can you imagine? 3.2 terabyte memory. So he can barely function. He can barely have Asana and Photoshop and Chrome.
You can only have 5 programs open at once.
It's so unrealistic.
Not even Chrome with like 7,000 tabs open.
So question for you. What would you consider? Like, this isn't a pop quiz or anything.
Yeah,
what would
yeah.
you consider? What would be your pie in the sky? Like, that makes sense for his memory usage. Like, how much space would he have?
At least petabyte. At least because a petabyte.
Yeah.
1 petabyte is 1,000 terabytes.
Wow.
So
Holy smokes.
So it's like you know like Google.
It's 500 of those hard drives.
Yeah. So like Google,
Wow.
so Google servers and big website servers,
Mm-hmm.
like it's like petabytes. I forget the one what's after peta. I don't know if it's zettabytes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, which is basically 1,000 petabytes. I
Yeah.
think someone can like fact check me.
Love this.
But yeah, at least in the petabytes.
That's so crazy.
At least 1 petabyte.
Yeah.
But
Easily,
the fact that
right?
he only can carry at the time
3.2 terabytes.
terabytes.
He's got to delete some photos.
That's 3,000 gigs.
Yeah,
That's
it's not that much.
A lot.
That's
I
how many
work-
movies?
Yeah. You know how many movies I could pirate with that? But yeah, like we're working in the
Ultron.
world. We're working in the world of like tech and data storage
Yeah,
and all that.
for
It's
sure.
like
Yeah.
3.2 terabytes to me and
Yeah.
us is like no.
Yeah. Nothing.
No.
Nothing. Ultron, you need an upgrade, buddy. So on the heels of that, we do have a listener question from Instagram via Superfanboy Guy. Ultron versus Brainiac. Who wins? Do you know Brainiac?
I do, but I don't know the extent of what he's
very
capable
surface
of.
level. Yeah, very surface level when it comes to Brainiac. But Brainiac, for those of you who don't know, is a DC, I would say more or less exclusive villain for Superman, who has done many a great
Yes.
unfortunate things to the Man of Steel. And he's like gone as far as to like shrink Krypton as a planet and punt it into
course.
oblivion.
Of course.
He's done many evil things. From what little I do know about Brainiac, I'm gonna say Brainiac. If we're talking like comic book Ultron, movie Ultron, I'm not sure, but
yeah,
I might side with Brainiac then too.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
I've heard he's done like crazy things,
Yeah.
like literally out of this
Yeah,
world stuff.
yeah.
So
His name is like literally Brain and Maniac. He's a maniac.
yeah,
That's for sure. So yeah, I would say Brainiac. I mean, sorry if you wanted a bigger, like exploration of that, but this is a Marvel show.
yeah.
Sorry, Brandon. So from there, we're gonna jump on over to aesthetic, and so yeah, believe it or not, this character is almost identical both ways. And Roy Thomas himself stated that Ultron was based off of Makino, which is a robotic villain from the Captain Video comic book series from the late 40s, 50s. So if you go back and look at this thing, it does, it's rustic, if you will. Whereas in the MCU, he's a big metal dude that essentially looks like an evil C-3PO. And, the interesting thing about both versions that is quite different from one another is that, yes, in the comics, he does look like an evil Ant-Man. He's kind of like an evil Ant-Man. His eyes are a little different. Sure. Yeah, the cuts in the facial structure are more like the helmet, and even the side apparatuses are kind of like what we see in Scott Lang's first helmet in the first Ant-Man movie. It's got the weird, I don't even know how to describe them without using my hands. Just the formation of it is very similar to that of Ant-Man, whereas in the MCU, you look at him at a certain angle and he looks like Iron Man.
Yes.
The detailing is the Iron Man,
Yeah.
the very trademark Iron Man like front panel shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he looks like a discolored Iron Man, because he's supposed to be like,
Based on
the Legionnaire, the Iron Legionnaires.
Oh, Junior, you're gonna make your old man
Make your old man cry.
You're gonna make your old man cry.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you remember that too. Well, I'm not that surprised actually.
Tony Stark is some sense. Don't you dare compare me to him.
That's what I liked about James Spader a lot, is that when Ultron would get like ornery and pissed off, like he just comes out of, like he goes from this really deep rooted deep voice into like almost like a menacing child, which is accurate, like that's how he should be, right?
Oh yeah, like that one scene where with Claw he's like, Tony Stark used to say that, are you one of Tony? And you're like, and he got so mad.
Like, and it's like, oh, okay. But those are pretty much the aesthetic differences. But I know we just jumped into this, but I do have another pop quiz for you that is related to the aesthetic of Ultron. And so it's obvious that Ultron is forged of metal. Of the quote unquote big four, as they call them in Marvel Comics, that exist in the Marvel Universe, which is Ultron made of in the books? Is it? Because let us remember, in the film, he himself is not created of vibranium, but he's created of some metal that is more or less the suits that Tony is forged of, right? Tony has created his suits from. So in the books, it's a bit different. Is it Uru, adamantium? I just gave one away. Vibranium or carbonadium?
Carbon, is that a soda?
Carbonadium, Pepsi. Not carbonadium.
In the books is what he's made of.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I already gave you vibranium. So it's either Uru, adamantium, or carbonadium.
Uru metal. Ooh, I forgot about, wow.
Uru.
Sorry.
You.
Wow, I forget like what adamantium like was. I know it's obviously Wolvie's claws, but I wonder like what else is like used for. And like, comic wise, vibranium, I feel like no. In the movie, yes, but obviously I don't think so in the comics. I want to go Uru metal.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's a great thought. It's not right.
The podcast is ending, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
This is a tough one, though. It is a tough one. Because, I don't know, even in my rewatch, I don't recall them saying what metal he was used of, like aside that it was just built in the Avengers Tower, right?
Oh, like before he got a hold of the vibranium?
Yeah. Like they didn't identify what that was made of, right?
Like those bots? Like those...
Yeah, the bots and stuff.
No, I think it was just,
don't, right?
whatever, whatever metal, like, I guess.
Yeah. Well, in the books, believe it or not, okay, let me break it down first. So, Uru may sound familiar to some of you because it is, of course, Thor's, Mjolnir, as well as Stormbreaker. Adamantium is familiar. Huh?
I botched that one.
No, you're fine. Adamantium is obviously Wolverine's claws and skeleton. Whereas vibranium is the material that created Black Panther's habit or his suit. And carbonadium is what some on the X-Men side will be more familiar with. It is actually the metal that Omega Red's tendrils are created from.
Okay.
You know Omega Red?
No, I don't.
He's like almost like a Russian super soldier, sort of.
Oh, okay.
And he's very pale white.
Okay.
And he has like tentacles, these metal tentacles in he's part of the Weapon X project as well.
Oh,
I believe.
okay.
And they come out like whips. he's a lot like Whiplash in a weird way.
Okay.
Far more deadly.
Yeah.
Far more deadly. But yeah, his tendrils are created of carbonadium. And so yes, in the comics, if you can believe it, Ultron is forged of adamantium.
Damn.
So, but with that, means that he's indestructible.
I know. That's pretty...
Indestructible. Oof. Vibranium and adamantium are the top two metals in the Marvel Universe, both of which are highly fictional. But they're impenetrable, indestructible in every which way. Like, so if you can imagine that guy walking around with what is essentially Wolverine's claws all over his body, He's highly indestructible.
I wonder if
Highly.
they introduce adamantium as a
Yeah.
as an element now in the MCU.
Yeah, which leads to like the question of, is there something else like robotics wise that they're going to introduce into the MCU as well? And I wanted to note something as far as aesthetics go. Like, in all these comic book cards and like websites and stuff, they always put like eye color, height, weight.
Yeah.
They put for Ultron on Marvel.com. They put hair, none. I was like, did you have to put that there? Like, just take it out. Just take it out. Yeah,
Cheeky.
this is super cheeky. So let's talk about adversaries a bit. So this is where it's going to get
Everybody.
Yeah, right. Pretty
Everybody.
much. This is going to get spicy. So aside the Avengers, there are a few adversaries that stand out when it comes to Ultron's targets. First and foremost, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne in the comic books, which is so crazy because again, like knowing, going back and learning or at least relearning this knowledge that Wasp and Ant-Man were at the basis of this character's origins is kind of wild to me. And then if they had, I just wonder, like there's part of me that tries to rewire it in my brain, like what if they had actually done that? What if they went that far and introduced Hank Pym and Janet at that point with Tony, and like they were creating Ultron like as a peacekeeping utility.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So once again, in the books, Ultron possesses a copy of Hank Pym's brain patterns, and so he adapted many of his attributes as a human, but in robotic form, without a conscience or consciousness of human life. And he eventually becomes his own sentient being with a touch of what is notably known as Oedipus complex. So Ultron hates Hank, does not like Hank Pym at all.
Hilarious.
But he has affections for Janet Van Dyne
Of course.
because it's his
Consciousness.
mother.
Oh, that too. Mother, yeah.
But also you're right because
Mother complex.
yeah, he's adopted Hank's
Kind of like mine.
everything,
Yeah.
right? And so Hank is in love and is married to Janet Van Dyne. And so with that, unfortunately, when that comes to Ultron, even though he calls them mommy and daddy, he's like, I want to be with mommy forever. And it's like really weird. And it is interesting because in contrast to the film, there's no mother figure for Ultron, right? But you do see at the end of its like life, quote unquote, he's like soft with Wanda. Like he's like, but Wanda, if you stay here, you'll die.
Yeah.
And like the whole weird, like he's on his last legs, but he's like still trying to reach out to this person who's going to end his life cycle. It's kind of weird, but I guess I don't know if that's what they were trying to accomplish with that. But she was there at the beginnings of his creation in a weird way, so I guess it makes sense. But I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, so, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, portrayed by Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer in the MCU. First seen in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and last seen in Endgame. Although, apparently, Pym's photo was last seen in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh.
I don't recall this.
I feel like, yes, maybe
Really?
in high school when they're showing like figures and stuff
Maybe,
of
huh?
like people, like public
okay.
figures. I think
okay.
Hank was probably,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's no overlap with these characters at all in the MCU.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
There's none
Yeah.
at all, at least at this point in time. Which brings us to the flip side of the game with Tony Stark and the Avengers. And so in the books, it's not like, while Tony is directly affiliated with the ultimate takedown of that character,
Yeah.
he's otherwise just by association. Like he's not nearly as involved as Hank. Like Hank is really like in all the early issues, in every issue when Ultron is coming back into the fray.
Yeah.
It's always got Hank Pym. It's always got Hank Pym like at the helm, really trying to figure things out.
Interesting.
In concert with Tony.
Yeah.
So of course Tony is helping because he's technologically sound. He's a very smart man.
Yeah.
But Hank Pym is the brains. And so I guess I'm answering my own question there in that why didn't they do this in the MCU? It's because Hank Pym is supposed to be a notable genius too.
Yeah.
And so at this point in the MCU, they're really trying to focus on Tony because he's the it boy, right? He's
100%.
everything.
Yeah. And then I think because obviously in the comics, Hank is a horrible person.
Exactly.
And I think in the MCU, he's not that bad of a person. Like he doesn't show signs of at least being like
almost very wholesome.
Yeah, like a psychopath or anything, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like he's a family man.
Yeah.
Like for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously that's different taking What If, but that's because it's What If. But
yeah. That episode is iconic. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So and you said like it's Tony. This is Tony's era, so him creating, Ultron is also not that far off.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, Tony Stark, portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU. Rip. First scene in Iron Man, last scene in Avengers Endgame. So he was the creator of Ultron in the MCU, which was essentially a sidebar project after the Avengers acquired Loki's scepter containing the Mind Stone. Stark sought to better his Iron Legionnaire models and helped protect the planet with the AI. However, upon awakening, immediately advances, killing Jarvis.
Right.
And like you said, he even refers to Ultron as Junior. And it's like so wild. And so it's not unlike Pym and Ultron in the books. They have this weird like father-son thing, almost, kind of, sort of, in that Ultron is like, he's acknowledging his creator, but he's also like, yeah, but you're also human. You need to die because all the humans need to die.
Yeah.
And of course, like in the books as well, the rest of the Avengers all come by proxy. So Nat, Hulk, Wanda, Pietro, all of them are brought into the fray simply by association.
Yeah.
None of these characters had nearly as much stake as Tony, except for one, and that would be Vision. Vision. And so this is, I wrote quite a bit for Vision just because in the books and in the film, which I think they balanced pretty well.
Yeah.
This is the character that Ultron really does have like the most impact in and with and from in all aspects of the character. So in the origin era for Ultron, by that time in the books, Vision already existed. So he was already his own sentient being. Again, he had Wonder Man's brainwave patterns, not unlike Ultron had Hank's. But he was, Vision was undeniably affected by Ultron's existence. And so calling back to Ultron's origins itself, the story didn't really pick up until about 11 issues later. So we're talking Avengers number 66, when Thor and, more importantly, Vision enter the scene. And so it's really interesting because Viz is kind of going about life in this like, who am I? What am I?
Yeah.
Like constantly just questioning like who he is and is he his own person or
purpose,
is he Wonder Man? And so, he's connecting the dots with he and his program consciousness. And so at this time, like, I think Hank had like Hank or somebody had a huge chunk of adamantium in the workspace, and Viz absorbs it into himself. He disappears, but he absorbs it into himself, and then he like takes off. And the next time you see him, that's when he's confronted by Ultron again. And they kind of have this squabble where Ultron tries to assimilate with him, very much like the cinematic universe, where even though they weren't like, they were just consciousness floating about, like he assimilated to Vision in that way. And so he does that in the comic books, and that's how he actually gets the adamantium property and becomes Ultron 6.
Whoa.
So he gets his upgrade and he's like absorbed Vision in this weird way.
Jesus.
So it's all this technological robot stuff.
Of course.
Of course, Vision, portrayed by Paul Bettany, and first seen in Age of Ultron and last seen in WandaVision. They have all these like one-on-one conversations that are actually quite similar to Vision and Vision at the end of WandaVision.
How many times have we said a vision in a span of
it's not
10
as much
seconds?
as we said Groot. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like basically the overarching conversation is artificial intelligence is trying to figure out its place in the grand scheme of the universe.
Yeah.
And then it's advancing so quickly that it can't help but evolve.
Yeah.
And it goes for both of them.
Now I was just came to my head like that process in Age of Ultron was just like a transferring of like data. So it went from like Tony.
That's it.
Created Ultron.
Yep.
Ultron developed his own consciousness and he was going to put his consciousness, whatever, his vision into Vision.
Exactly.
And Vision was going to be this all encompassing like new body that's just going to like screw everybody up.
Right.
Screw this world up. So it was like, oh man.
But instead, he built his own consciousness and his own like sort of
Jarvis's conscious was put into Vision's body.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
one big data transfer.
That's basically it. It's basically a gigantic data transfer. And they kind of adapt that further into the lineage that becomes Ultron's like overview, if you will. I didn't want to go this episode without mentioning once again Dr. Helen Cho, portrayed by Claudia Kim. And so
love her.
She's so good in that film, and I almost feel robbed that she's never appeared in anything else.
I know.
But again, like we mentioned in our Hulk episode, or various episodes actually, is that Dr. Helen Cho, she is the mother, in the comic book, she's the mother of Amadeus Cho, who was the Asian, totally awesome Hulk.
Oh.
There is an Asian Hulk, and so he's part of the younger crew, the young Avengers sort of. And yeah, she is his mother in the books. So I'm wondering like, okay, well, I know we haven't seen her in a beat, but would that character at least come back in a different form or for a different purpose?
She created Vision, technically.
Exactly. She's technically Vision's mom, like she put that cradle, she made sure that the cradle worked, that the body or the shell was properly produced, and then like even the Ultron brainwashed her and all that good stuff. She was very present in that movie. Yeah. Like from start to beginning. From start to end, she was very present in that film. Yeah. And then she just gone. And I'm kind of like, bro, where'd she go?
I know.
Yeah.
Love her.
I would love to see her again though, but yeah, so Vision and Ultron, like two kids from the same family, I think. And then also I have to say the film really reminded me why I love Paul Bettany as Vision. Like truly, he's so good from everything, the aesthetics and everything. And even the way that he speaks to Ultron, and especially their last conversation in the woods with the final model that beyond the one that Wanda kills. It's what did he say? He's like, you're unbearably naive, and he's like,
well, I was born yesterday. And I was like, yeah, love that so self-awareness right there.
So, and then like showing or not showing the final blast of killing him,
the final Ultron.
Yeah. It's that. Yeah, I think he really, again, like despite all the like first appearances and such in this film, I think that Vision is undeniably like the standout of all of them. And he's incredible. And then it kind of brings us to family, friends, and affiliations. And I quite literally just put so about that.
None. He's a terrible being.
It has nothing. It has absolutely nothing. Ultron. No.
He wants to kill the world.
Yeah,
he wants to every human extinct.
Nobody likes Ultron.
Yeah.
Ultron doesn't make friends. He's not the party guy. But he does have a love interest, if you can believe that. Wow. Yeah. No friends, no family, no affiliations, but he's got a love interest. And so
everybody's got a weak spot.
Yeah, he's got a weak spot, right? And so while there are theories that believe Ultron was in love with Wanda, thanks to Reddit, I know. I think it's the Oedipus complex. Some weird play on the Oedipus complex. Ultron actually has a notable love interest in the comics. And so, you know, this kind of calls back to, you know, again, like all the Avengers were just kind of there by proxy. But there are some moments in the comics where Ultron seems, again, affectionate towards Wanda, or I don't know, like affectionate's a strong word, but it always ends up that, because in the books he's always taken down by somebody that isn't of brute strength or like super smart intelligence, but people that can dive into the consciousness of the mind. And so when he battled the Fantastic Four, it was actually like among all those heroes, including the freaking X-Men and the Inhumans, it was Franklin Richards, who is the son of Sue and Reed, that takes him down. And it's because he has like these incredible telepathic powers. And the same goes for Wanda. Wanda is able to bring him down in the Avengers run because she just works her, you know, her magic and also her mutant powers on Ultron. So I don't know if that's where like people are pulling it from. Like, oh, he's soft because it's like, well, she's also capable of taking him down. So there's that. But yes, he does have a love interest in the book, and her name is Jocasta, or Jocasta Pym, depending on who you ask. They're keeping it in the family, just like the Targaryens.
That's so gross.
So
Jesus.
Gross. Yikes. So Jocasta, this might be a familiar name off and on, depending on what level of robot Marvel fan you are. I think we've talked about her maybe once, maybe in the Vision episode as well. I can't recall.
A small mention.
Yeah, really small mention. So Jocasta was created with the intention of being very much like the Bride of Frankenstein. So basically they were like, we have Ultron, now let's make a female version.
Always got it. Oh, God. They're like, this thing is horrible.
Yeah.
They need a partner. So
we need a female version. Yeah, and so it's funny because if you see the panels in the comic, you know, again, 1960s, late 1960s, they're about to cross over to the 70s. It is quite literally like a Frankenstein setup where they have those laboratory like you know, they have two of the setup. They have Jan like pinned to one, and then they have a robot shell pinned to another, and they've got like wires connecting the two, and like Jan is essentially naked, and then they just have like giant metal things over her private areas.
Jesus.
And so Jocasta was intended to supply a mate or life partner for Ultron, which doesn't make sense to me because he has no conscience.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel the need to, but yet they thought. Anyway, so Ultron brainwashed Pym to transfer Janet's consciousness into Jocasta.
What an elaborate plan.
Exactly.
What a sick mind.
It's basically Robot Jan and Hank. That's what it is. It's called what it is. So Ultron and Jocasta are Hank and Jan. And so, although ultimately, so he successfully did it, there's this whole like series of pages where Jan is talking and then stops talking and it's Jocasta talking instead. So they successfully like put her consciousness into Jocasta. Ultimately, they disconnect. Jocasta is left empty. Jan is revived. But then Ultron is like, because he comes back, better technology than last time. He revives Jocasta again, and he's able to tap into the residual leftovers of the shell. So good God, it's like they're scraping the barrel, man. And so he brings her back to life, so to speak, and he's able to have his partner. And so she's lackluster. She's not nearly the same version that she was for those 2 hot minutes that she was actually thriving as Jocasta. But yeah, he's able to have this partner and sort of like partner in crime more so because they're both like villains in a way. But like with many outcomes, Jocasta was then intended, although she was intended to serve him and be loyal to him, she betrayed him.
Hey.
Oh.
What does she do?
She joins the Avengers.
Oh!
Yeah, so she too, also an artificial intelligence, evolves in her own way.
She went
And
on
she
went on the good side.
She went on the good side, and
Wow.
she became an Avenger. So Jocasta, shockingly enough, we don't have a true MCU counterpart, but
Imagine though.
there is an Easter egg in Age of Ultron of this character. I didn't see it on my rewatch.
Oh, really?
I didn't see it on my rewatch, but I've seen screenshots of it. And so after Jarvis was uploaded into Vision,
Yes.
Tony's like, he's rifling through all those chips, right? He's going through the chips. One of them says Jocasta. The other one says Friday. And then he ultimately picked Friday.
Oh.
I was like, oh, snap. And you know what? Actually, now that I'm saying it, I think I did see it when I saw it in theaters. I was
That's
like,
a-
Jocasta.
That's a good Easter egg right
That's
there.
a pretty good Easter egg.
Yeah.
So, quote unquote, she exists, but she's not been used in any capacity.
Not
so,
anymore, because
but
Tony Stark's dead. I'm just kidding.
But like say they sold all his stuff or they gave his technology to the next worthy person.
Which we still don't know who bought the Avengers Tower. But
with,
yeah.
with the beginnings and upcomings of someone named Ironheart,
I know.
we could see all of these characters in
Yeah.
some capacity come up in some way, in a bigger way. Right?
Yeah.
And so and like off the beat of this, I kept confusing her like mentally, Jocasta and Mainframe, who Miley Cyrus played.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you might have been thinking that was Jocasta as well, but that's Mainframe.
Yeah.
So it's a different character, but again, robots. You don't know. We're doing the robot. Mr. Roboto.
You guys can't see it, but I'm
robot.
literally doing the robot.
Yeah. So that's Jocasta. So we haven't seen her yet.
Crazy.
So I wonder if, there's so many questions. There's always a what if, right? Like, what if we see Jocasta come up? What if Jocasta she's introduced into the Avengers in some way?
Yeah.
Or does she come in as a villain and then she's reprogrammed? And,
Yeah.
Or is that who shows up with Vision next time we see Vision? Like, who knows? We don't know.
What if Vision creates himself a Jocasta because he knows he can't be with...
But then what about the Vision family? Because he has a Vision family in the comic books. And that's where Viv comes from.
We will...
Viv Vision. And they have a dog.
There's so many things.
So many things.
God.
Well, I will say in other versions, in other media, the one of Ultron that truly stands out that I feel is worth talking about is the one from What If? Once again, voiced by Ross Marquand. And so that Ultron appeared in What If Ultron 1, the 8th episode of season 1. And more or less, Ultron assimilates to the body created for Vision, bisects Thanos, and the whole shebang. He becomes crazy, evil
that
robot
whole,
pants.
That whole arc was just like
That was
insane.
so wild. And it carried over.
Yeah.
Carried over episodes, which... Again, it
Insane.
doesn't really happen in What If,
So-
like at least the comics.
Like he's Vision or he's Ultron
Yeah.
and he has Infinity
And he has-
Stones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he can travel between verses.
Multiverses, yeah.
God, I was just like,
Dude.
I was like, I don't know how this is gonna end. Like, what's the Watcher gonna do?
They
here?
might have just been like, yeah, and he's made of adamantium on top of it. Like, they might as well have done it.
Gosh.
Like, he's unstoppable.
Gosh.
He's unstoppable. And what happened? I can't recall what happened.
Well, the Watcher, there was that fight between multiverses
Yeah.
with the Watcher.
Right?
I think that was like one episode.
Yeah.
And then I think the start of the next episode, he basically forms the multiverse Avengers.
Right. The Guardians of the Multiverse.
Guardians of the Multiverse.
Right.
And they...
See, I don't remember what happened after
I
that.
think... Man, what was it? I think they fought in the multiverse where it was like Nat and
Yes,
Nat
where
and Clint were
Hawkeye,
the last two people.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And they're fighting for like one of the stones got loose. They're fighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
Da da da. And I think they're able to like use it to destroy Ultron. I think, or maybe not destroy. I have to rewatch. Now I
Mm. I have
gotta
to rewatch it. Yeah.
But I just remember I think they succeeded because then they all met again in
Yeah.
the Watchers, the bar or whatever.
Oh, yeah. That's right. The
And-
tavern.
the tavern.
Huh.
And then I mean you've seen a couple of the episodes, right? One season.
Just the one.
Just the
Yeah,
one?
just the one from season 2.
So I wonder.
And he's not in that at all.
Oh, he wasn't.
No.
Wow.
It's just the Watcher, Peggy, Bucky, a little bit of Wanda. No, is
Yeah.
that Wanda? I don't know. If that's
Zombies?
the-
That's Marvel Zombies. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a different show. I can't remember if it was a stinger or a commercial. Like I can't remember if it was part of the
Yeah.
episode. But anyway, yeah, like yeah, I don't know.
He was insane.
It was scary.
He was psychotic.
I remember when I first watched it or saw like I don't know if it was one of the snippets online or something.
Yeah.
And like that part of the helmet thing came up and it was Vision. I was like, I like literally gasped out loud. I was like,
Oh, and also
It's
he sliced
Thanos. He
Thanos
bisected him. Yeah. Like right down the middle.
I was
Boom,
like,
bye.
oh, this is where this is going. Okay.
Can you imagine if Vision had just done that in the movie?
I was imagining that whole like what if this was just like
Yeah.
a live action movie? Like it'd be
Dude,
so
it
like
would have been
dark
so
and visceral.
insane. Yeah. Super
insane.
scary. Yeah. Yeah. Ultron's a scary character.
Yeah.
I mean, I in all honesty, even though he was only in one film, I almost feel like they could have done a little more. Just
Sure.
a little more.
Sure.
But I guess that's what stuff like What If is for, right? Like it's meant
exactly.
to build and expand on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. Like I wonder what the next quote unquote Ultron is going to be, which of course is kind of more or less our next question. So we did get a couple of questions / comments from Instagram as well from both of our lovely listeners, Ariel Tima and Andrew Frank. Do you think Ultron will come back into the MCU? And do you think there's any chance that Ultron is still out there on a floppy disk
On a floppy disk.
or a 3.2 terabyte?
Oh my god, just a hard drive.
Jump drive, yeah. I mean,
I feel like he's always going to exist. The program's always going to
Somewhere, right?
exist. Yeah, like it's never
Yeah.
not, you know.
yeah, I agree.
I don't know if he'll ever come back
Yeah.
like as a physical being.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his name will always be there and like be like, okay, this is but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I mean, if it does, it would have to be even more advanced the next time he comes around.
Right.
Because I feel like with the Age of Ultron, it was already advanced. Like he can travel the net in like 0.5 seconds.
Exactly.
Whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And so like now it'd be like, okay, so how do you defeat somebody now? Like
Mm-hmm.
you already show that like Vision like beating like Ultron. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he would come back. Maybe it is the Jocasta way,
That'd be crazy.
you know?
Yeah.
But I think Ultron like as a program and
Mm-hmm.
then as it would be, I don't think he'll be back just because there's so much unless Kang is like, screw it, I'm gonna go to this
Can you
verse
imagine?
and then just bang, go to a
If he
universe where it
goes-
goes to a universe where Ultron won,
Yeah.
recruits him like, let's do this.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm scared about. Like, what if they do something
Yeah.
like that?
Maybe the MCU took initiative from What If and I was
Yeah.
like, yes, let's make this thing dark.
Can you imagine?
Let's just kill people. Let's just kill Avengers.
I know, they go real dark.
Yeah. Kill Paul. They're gonna kill Paul Rudd. Imagine
Oh my god! Peter Parker. Doc
Sliced.
Ock.
Boom.
Oh
in
my
half.
god. I would be like, I don't know. The world isn't ready for that thought. Oh my god. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's possible that he's still out there. And of course, like, like both, again, comic book and film, the name of the game with this character is evolution. And
Yeah.
so like, how do you can't, that all data is, you can't erase all data.
Yeah.
It all exists in some weird way. And so it just keeps, as Ultron as an AI, for him to keep creating himself over and over again to the point where he is of something, some semblance of materializing, and then he just keeps advancing and evolving until he can be an Ultron again.
Yeah.
I think is kind of like where that character would be or end up. But yeah, it's kind of like Squid Game, right? Spoiler alert, like if you don't watch the last few episodes, like if you don't see a character die on screen, like full on screen,
True.
they are not dead yet.
True.
So
Wait, what? I'm just kidding.
it's kind of like I take that rule of thumb with Ultron in the film, right? Like, sure, you see the blast, and sure, Vision was supposed to take him out, but did he? He? I don't know. Maybe he's still in Sokovia somewhere.
Yeah, and and Ultron's a program too, you know.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
it's a data.
Like
It's-
Arnim Zola was able to jump computers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Ultron.
And like, are we
could
gonna
be-
say Arnim Zola is more like advanced than Ultron?
He was
like-
literally on tape.
Like, okay.
He was on magnetic tape.
Yeah, like come on.
Yeah.
So-
and he survived centuries. Like, well, not centuries, decades.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You just never know.
You just never know. We don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. So I guess that kind of covers that. There was no almost was. I mean, what? there's nobody. I'm sure that they, very much like Vin Diesel, like we mentioned in our last episode. I'm sure that they had an idea of what they wanted him to sound like.
Yeah.
They thought of an esteemed actor that was very good at drama, but also could be dark and humorous. James Spader really fit that bill.
Watch the behind the scenes of,
Yeah.
of James Spader acting out
Yeah.
Ultron on set. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing
it's
stuff.
I think it's very underrated too.
Yeah.
And then suggested reading, I mean, all of the above, so all the old Avengers runs, I think they're very funny and they're also very like of the times, but it does kind of give you a peek at what could have been and in a classic Avengers style, as well as the Age of Ultron run. And so what I didn't quite mention is that beyond the 10 issues in 2013, it also sprawled into a full event. So it went into different comics. It went into the other titles. And so in total, I don't know, maybe 24 or 40 issues total. But, you see how this kind of takes over and spills over into other books. And so, yeah, if you want the best bang for your buck when it comes to Ultron, Age of Ultron is definitely it. And then as well as the solo titles that came out immediately on the heels of 2013 Age of Ultron. So it was all in preparation for the film. All of it.
Yeah.
And then they even did a prelude, which they seem to be doing a lot lately with these movies, is that prelude to Avengers, Age of Ultron. And so it's not quite 616 or alternate universe. It is part of the MCU.
Oh.
And it's the stories that they don't quite fit into the film.
Got it.
And so there's one of those as well. So you might as well read that too. And that, dear friend, is the end of the show.
Wow.
Yes.
Our main man, Ultron.
Ultron.
He's like super like, if you think, like
Yeah.
we said at the top of the episode, like the movie like is probably the least heralded of the four
the
Avengers
four,
movies.
yeah.
And
But he set
and
a
I get
precedent,
it,
man.
but you watch the movie again,
Yeah.
it's I think it's underrated. Because
Yeah.
I still have a lot of fun watching the movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I
It's-
really enjoyed it.
Super fun. The concept of Ultron, how they handled it, how they weave, like obviously because the comic origin is different, and it just made sense.
And it made tons of sense. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of what I liked about it. Is
Yeah.
that it wasn't just I have an idea. And like no, they actually did think it through, and it did make sense the way that it came about.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I liked it a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go rewatch it. It's fun.
It's fun.
It might change your mind.
Yeah, honestly, it's like Thor: Dark World.
I was gonna say we rewatched Thor: Dark World and we were like, this
actually
movie's
not that
not
bad.
bad. It's just
Age of Ultron is even better.
I think it's just like
Yeah.
at the time you don't understand things and then you watch it and you're like, okay, well
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of have the
they
perspective.
they went that route for a reason. And you got to just take it.
And also Pietro.
I know.
Pietro, like, come on.
I mean, that movie gave us Wanda.
Exactly.
It gave me Wanda.
When she first appeared, I was like, Jeffrey's wifey.
God. I was like,
Yeah. So many introductions, so many iconic introductions,
Yeah.
and also like explorations of characters. Yeah.
yes. And that's very hard to do in a big ensemble movie.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
agree.
like the whole Clint backstory.
And 100% CGI, non-realistic or practical antagonist.
Yes.
Like, and the first actual introduction with the stinger to Josh Brolin's Thanos.
That's right.
Yeah, that's his first appearance. Is in that mid credits.
Insane.
Crazy. 'Cause-
2015. That's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah, yeah, because the other one is the other guy.
7 years ago.
Yeah, so weird.
Gosh.
7 years
and now,
ago.
And now we're in the Kang Dynasty.
And now we're in the Kang Dynasty, y'all. So, thanks for listening. Next episode, Jeff, we haven't picked it yet, but we have 2 more character studies before our next mini Marvel. So we're kind of nailing it down. It'll probably be the expected suspects being in the She-Hulk or Black Panther world. So stay tuned for more announcements
Yes.
on those. We are Groot. Salute. As Jeff puts his hand up, to Melanie, Andrew, Claire, Ed, Nats, Ariel, Robin, the Arachnid, Jenny, Katie, Joe Liz, Ashley, Laura, Tyler, and Andrea. Follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, review, rate, and subscribe. It's working. Thank you very much. I just have to say.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Dai just sent me a picture from Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, we've got a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. So thank you so much to everybody who's rated. Yes.
Leave your name in the comments.
Oh my
now.
gosh, we appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. And that's it.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch y'all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
You think I'm one of Stark's puppets, his hollow men? Look at me. Do I look like Iron Man? Stark is... I don't understand. Don't compare me with Stark.